Welcome to Still Growing in Grace, a program dedicated to inspiring joy, giving hope, and delighting in grace. I'm Mike Zenker, and I'll be sharing with you a message of hope that will expand your understanding of God's love and amazing grace. God already deeply loves you, totally accepts you, and really, really likes you. Growing in Grace Ministries Canada and Hope Fellowship, your community church, invite you to enjoy today's program as we dig deeper into what it means to be still growing in grace. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Welcome to Still Growing in Grace, a sort of weekly program, depending on how the weeks go. But today I've got a kind of a neat topic for you. I'm going to introduce you to Toon again. She's had me on her podcast, so I'm taking that conversation, sharing it with you as well. You'll see the links below to her webpage, and Facebook group is at Toon MD. You'll see that there. But she's also one of the founders of GOMA, Global Online Ministry Alliance, where I broadcast every week, both on Sunday morning and on Wednesday mornings, to a different audience of folks that are growing in grace and their own journey of identity. But either way, I thought this conversation is going to be really important. We ended up talking about grief and grieving. And in my particular world, I do a lot of work in the grief world of funerals, and I see an awful lot as a chaplain in long-term care homes, fire department chaplain. So I just sit back and enjoy. Maybe you'll identify with some of the stuff we're talking about, but I think this would be an encouraging way to, how do we find hope in darkness? How do we find light? How can we see and look for light in dark times? And COVID has really messed up how we focus, or maybe not so much messed up, but revealed how terribly we handle certain situations and stresses. So I remember one conversation we had with Richard and Bill that I think COVID's almost been a gift to the church in a way, where it's revealed things that have been not right or broken all along, and now it's come to light. And oh my goodness, we either need to remove this part or fix this. Has anybody looked under the couch for the last couple of years? Look how dirty it is. Things like that. So in the same way, walking through pain of life, loss of not just the death of a loved one, but loss of relationships, separations, estrangements, you name it. All this stuff can really, really hamper your mind. So how do we handle this? Let's see how this conversation between Catherine and I go. Thank you, Catherine, for allowing me to be a guest on your podcast. It's an honor to share this with my audience. I love it. Here we go.
I am so excited to have Mike Zenker. He's back, right? He has taken caution to the wind and agreed to come back.
I never said I wasn't. It's been crazy.
I know. I'm just always happy anytime we can get together. How are you doing?
Doing well. This COVID has played a really big head game on everyone. And so for me, coming through 18, 19 months from when this pandemic began, and the world I have my fingers in, I'm seeing it from many, many perspectives. But I'm getting tired. I think all the sitting tight anxiousness of a year and a half, being strong for everyone else, suddenly you loosen your butt cheeks and go, I'm tired.
Oh my goodness, boy, isn't this the truth? And it's so important to have a place where, as a minister, the one who's supporting all that kind of thing, to have a place of support. And this is why we need one another, which is why it's such a joy to connect.
This is fun.
Yeah. And a lot of coachings that I do are on leaders as well as other, just because they need a place to, we all need a place where we can relax the butt cheeks and be tired and not have to say, well, if I'm really representing Jesus, I never get down. I never get,
that's baloney.
I never get tired. Absolute baloney. Absolutely.
Then somebody will say, then you're not doing it right. It's like, what?
What is wrong? Okay, so now we're not only tired and stressed out, but we're condemned. Thanks for
Yeah.
that. So
Yep.
yeah, we just need to kind of chill and recognize that we're people doing our thing, living life. I know COVID has impacted you a lot with changes in where the income streams were running or where you
Oh, I
thought the
know,
income streams were running, and just everything. It's been poop making. It's been
learning
tiring.
curves. Yeah, learning curves have gone through the roof. I have moved from being a more primary speaking to a tech professional. You know, like you too. Like you had to learn all this Zoom stuff, and then how to share, how to record, now how to stream properly, all this stuff. And I couldn't have done it without some good people around me to coach me and help me. But I've learned and I'm learning. So it's tiring when you realize all the categories that have had to change because we're used to a comfort zone.
Yeah.
Pardon?
All at one time.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And then, of course, you have the issue of people, the way of life has changed.
Yep.
You know, we're all like, I want to get back to normal. Well, what does normal look like anyway? And is there a normal? What does a new normal look like?
It wasn't working.
Right. And that's exactly right. So we get an opportunity to upgrade, but there's a struggle. And a lot of times there's grief of letting go to what we knew. Not to mention the letting go of, you know, life changes happen. I mean, a lot of people died or lost during that time. And then you have just the regular changes in life going. And I know you do a whole lot of funerals and just counseling people with grief. And I just felt like this might be a huge topic. Even as we were talking, I was like, dang, this is a great topic. How do we handle our grief? And being okay that we actually have grief. Sometimes, you know, we get condemned that we're actually suffering or having a down day or whatever, because we've got this great joy, you know. Well, I mean, the thing is, but we do have real life happening. And there's a tension that we need to be free as a human beings to experience that Christ partook of. And apparently
I think people forget we're human.
Problem. Oh,
right. Like I
had no idea.
I know, human. I know. We don't become this superhuman because we say we believe in Jesus. Yeah. And then there's this tag on, well, if you believe in Jesus, really believe in him, then you wouldn't be having these struggles. Exactly. And oh my goodness.
That is kind of what it means to be human, is to be struggling and growing and being conformed in the image of Christ as everything's kind of hitting you all at once. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and that's a challenge. I mean, this is why we so need one another. Mm-hmm. It's so important because we're not going to do this, me and Jesus. I mean, you need Jesus, you need to look to him first, but the bottom line, a lot of times you need to look to Christ and others and just have the companionship of
Can I jump on that for a second?
Please jump.
Oh my goodness, this got to make Jesus first. That's a great line. And I know I want to hijack that because I'm coming lately. You asked, what am I learning lately?
Yeah.
I'm thinking we don't have to make Jesus first at all. Right. I think Jesus is already the default first. Wow. It's up to Jesus to get our attention, to realize he's there all along anyway. Ooh. And suddenly another layer of got to, need to, suddenly falls off. Wow. And that's only the last couple of weeks I caught that, and I thought, make Jesus first. And I've said that. That's why it's kind of funny you said that. Oh, wait a minute.
Let's so funny.
Dive into that, because it's it means you're suggesting your self-effort is what's required to maintain any growth or peace or anything. That's the lie.
Well, I do believe it does say somewhere, apart from him, we can do nothing. So he's already first. We can't make him first.
Oh, we can do lots without him.
Awaken. Oh, we do things all the time, but all apart from him. But you should get into trouble.
Yes, I didn't say it was good.
we get confused.
We're really good at wood, hand, stubble, right? That's the stuff we make in our own ego strength.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. No. That is so good. I love that. So Jesus is already first. We're not making him first. We're awakening.
There is no second.
He already is, and then we need his help to awaken us.
But he does it. What I'm learning is he's the one dragging us to that revelation. It's not even finding the right speaker, the right video, the right teacher, the right scripture, the right meme to post. Look at this incredible thing to watch or listen to. And honestly, it's just Jesus that will draw us to the place where we need to be. And sometimes it's going to take a long time to declutter, to dust, to deconstruct is a word that's often used. But there are things we may have to unlearn. And even in this pandemic, there are patterns in our lives that we've discovered that are useless. Why were we doing them? And the COVID has become a gift in many ways.
Yes.
And I think it's even been a gift to the church, because people that go to church ritually found out that churches lied. You know, they don't need to go every Sunday. You know, like what?
Oh my goodness. Yes. You're not worried about them spinning out because they're not attending.
Who's in charge?
Cheat us down.
Who's in charge of them? Not the church. It's Jesus in them. And I think we've gotten such a gotten full of ourselves in the church world, that the attendance is key, because if they don't attend, they don't give, right? But I honestly love the fellowship. I love the connections, and watching some places crash and burn has been painful. There are brothers and sisters in Christ, but we can learn from the crashes that have happened. So this is really making us realize, hang on, COVID is making us pause. Now, my life went busier. It didn't slow down. My
mine
kids,
too.
Yeah, like my kids.
Like, where's that pause I was hearing about? I hear pause.
Well, I know, because the kids are saying, "Hey, we got all this time. Hey, look, we can clean the house. We'll get COVID time now. We're going to get so many things done." Yeah, right. Like everybody's got those lists of dreams, but 6 months in, it's like, I don't feel like it. And my world's ramped up. They want more of me. I can't be there because I'm out really trying to make sure we're going to be okay. And that's the kind of the tired I'm catching up from. And now Jesus is showing me, okay, I've let you, and it's been great, but now I'm drawing you to slow down a bit, and we got some contemplation time to do. I thought, okay, but he's bringing the attention, right? I'm not trying to find it,
because he's taking care of his son, right?
Yeah.
We cannot run out. You have tremendous capacity. I have tremendous capacity. I got COVID last month, and one of the things I realized is, how much my capacity waned, and that I just had to be okay not operating at capacity. It's interesting. I was like, kind of after I kind of got through it, one of the things that happened, and I had not just COVID, actually COVID was, other than physically, I had so much stuff hit it was like the 2021 month of 2000. It was like the 2020 month of 2021. It was like the crackle of month. And at the end, my dad died after all of that. And that was kind of the capper. So much going on. And I was like,
you're facing grief right now too.
Yeah, well, there's beautiful navigation, I have to say. But yes. And so for me, and then of course I had COVID braids. So it's like, okay, I can get it. Yeah. I haven't gotten it. Okay. And so I just it was a good humbling. But I wasn't kind of rebounding, me 3 days of cold and you're up to go, and so it was humbling in a good way. I kind of embraced the humbling, because if I'm going to suffer, I'm going to learn from it. I've just, this is me. If I'm going to suffer, there's going to be something on the other side. But the Lord, in my sort of slowing down or being forced to slow down and not being productive and not like I can't do that. I can't do that. No, I'm not ready to do that. Right. I just don't, or yes, I want to write. I've got nothing to say, right. Whatever that is. And so the Lord literally talk about taking care of his daughter. And this is really beautiful. He said, Catherine, because I was ready. I was actually getting ready to work on my book. I thought, okay, great. I've my schedule's cleared. I can write. And I got literally 2 lines, and that was it. And the Lord said, Catherine, I want you to sit down and review everything that you've lost or changed or whatever that happened, that imploded in this month, and what it meant to you. 4 hours later, I was still journaling. Wow. And then I realized that, Catherine, why are you trying to get up so quickly, as if it's just a flash of food?
I know.
Right? And it was such a good humbling and just a reminder, oh my God, Catherine Toon is human. And it also helped me work out the grief. I'd kind of been doing it in bits and pieces, but I didn't string it along, because sometimes when you're kind of knocked down, the knockdown of one thing with a knockdown of something else, with a knockdown of something else, amplifies what would have been easier to cope with or whatever, if it just weren't one thing, right?
Yep.
And so it was such a good exercise. And then I also had to realize, there were times when I just didn't have, I had a really crapola attitude. I'm sorry, this is just what it is. And I was like having to be kind to myself in the midst of that. Granted, when I get like that way, I really usually just kind of retreat. Not that I'm trying to avoid people, but I don't want to vomit on people. But I do, actually let the Lord help me. If I need to reach out to someone, I will. But I just figure until I'm in a better place, they don't need my vomit on top of all the vomit they're experiencing. So that was kind of one of the ways that the Lord has really guided me during this last time. And we're not done. I mean, I've recovered so much, but I've realized something just like you. And I'm gonna let you speak. I'm so sorry, Mike. I'm blabbing.
Don't be sorry. This is a conversation.
Yes, it is. I've just realized that there's a new way of running, and that we are in this place of dependency. And if we're not kind of operating with the fruitfulness of how we used to define fruitful, you let Jesus define what that looks like. See, because if we're not enough with not being able to really perform, we're just not enough. And we're just complete in him, regardless of whether we're clicking the boxes or doing the good ministry that we were doing before. It just doesn't have to look like that. Anyway, so share. I know God's been doing a ton with you, so I want to hear it.
Well, I think you and I have similar busy personalities, and we notice in others that when they don't want to face meaningful things that they need to face in their lives, grief or a crisis, they avoid it by being busy or busier. Because to slow down, and for me as a guy, to feel, this is one thing I learned in my counseling a number of years ago when I was going through my therapy from sexual abuse from when I was younger. I didn't know that I was heading to extra alcohol. I didn't feel I was an alcoholic. And some people would say, well, you're just denying it. But when the counselor said to me, you're increasing your alcohol intake because it's your vice. It's not alcoholism. It's a vice you go to so you don't have to feel, because you don't know how to handle the feelings when they come. And so that just changed everything, like in a snap. And I realized people do that in their lives. They go shopping, they buy on Amazon, that don't drink and click, because they're trying to avoid emotions that they can't even identify.
Right.
And so in your world, you were forced to stop, and you had grief going on as well, which is a gift. So, it's sometimes easier just to work me busy than have to deal with people or crises.
Right. Or honestly feel the pain of, because for me, obviously a death is just a loss, and it wasn't a COVID death. He had been ill for quite some time. So it was kind of expected, and he'd had a long life.
But still, it's still real.
But
So
lots
when
of loss, and then unresolved issues that happen, given that relationships aren't perfect. You know what I mean? And so what does all that mean? How do you navigate that? And so, there's grief throughout there's this grief all the time. There's grief when you had a way of living and you don't have that living anymore. Everybody's talking about, we want to get back to normal. We're like, what is normal? What is the new normal? What is an upgraded normal? And
so tell that to a parent who has to go into a long-term care home because nobody can take care of them properly. They want to go back to normal. There is no normal. So this concept of back to normal is I want the security of knowing what's going to happen. It's about control.
Oh, dang.
So even for your grief, I don't know if you realize this, but you got double hit with grief. You got the grief before your dad passed away. You knew he was going to pass away. There's a grieving process that happens, but they don't tell you it starts all over, and it's totally new when they actually pass away. And that's something people are not prepared for.
Yeah.
And I thought that's powerful. You've probably experienced that already.
That is so, oh yeah, for sure. And there's, whatever expectations you had that weren't fulfilled, or, or that kind of thing, or things that happened that did happen that were not maybe positive, and you're just having to grapple with all those things because you get it all at once. It's kind of summation of that relationship in your life.
Yep.
And there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. And I so, oh man, Mike, I so appreciate this conversation, because I think a lot of times we've glorified the ability to kind of keep on trucking, right?
Suppressing.
And with that, we suppress and we get disconnected from our own hearts. And then we wonder why we're having all this crappy feelings that we're medicating with busyness, with good things, with ministry, with alcohol, with whatever, sex, with whatever we're medicating with shopping, whatever that is, with eating, overeating, all of that.
Yeah, I have a new curve to flatten. It's awful.
Yes. Can relate. You and so many of us, right?
I know. The curved cove.
Oh my God. That is just so crazy.
I have noticed something big in the funeral world, since we were talking about funerals.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
In COVID, a couple of things have happened. Families were forced to not be able to have any kind of service, or at least here in Canada, I don't know what it was like for you, but we were allowed a maximum of 9 family members in the funeral home and the officiant. That was the rules for safety. And then they did Zoom or live stream and those kinds of things. But many, many, many people opted to have nothing. Yeah. And I think that is one of the greatest hurts in the grieving process. You're now extending the process and you don't even know it.
No closure.
Absolutely. Well, there's steps to it. Now, however, COVID can give us there's a bonus to this. If you end up having a small service during COVID, and right now we're still in COVID, you also get to do a do-over later and turn it into more of a celebration. So there's a 2-part. Part 1 is you've got to, and then part 2 is, okay, that's over. Now there's a different attitude when you come together for a memorial and you kind of celebrate in a new way. It's not too late. And so people forget that, or they're not doing anything. They say, we'll do it later, and they're not.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think that's a big hurt.
Kind of waiting to see if my father's wife wants to do a memorial. We've done some things online, but we're kind of waiting to see. And it's I just want to honor her in that.
You don't have any control in that.
Yeah, no, that's not my place.
I encourage folks to do a graveside if you have to. Like, go do a graveside service, especially if it's cremation. You can set the time. It's outside, so it's a lot safer. Go do a graveside. Then later you can have your own small memorial service to remember after COVID is relaxed, right?
Sure.
But that first step of public acknowledgement, because to me, the committal is the public acknowledgement the earth suit gave out.
Right.
And we need that. Like, even though the family's been grieving since the moment they died, now there's this stamp of now is the day, because you have in your calendar, that's the day we did the service. You're never going to forget that. Well, if you don't have anything, it's like, I feel like something's left undone, because it is.
Right.
So I really encourage folks, if you have a loved one, if you're putting things off and you've had a loved one pass away, have something soon. Don't wait any longer. You can do another larger one at a time of year when it's meaningful, like even at Christmas. Have a time to remember, light a candle in their honor and have a conversation about them.
Yeah.
There are healthy ways to process the grief, but not doing anything is not one of them. I had a family member, not my family, but a connection to me, just recently. The deceased didn't want anything. Oh, please don't fuss over me. I don't want anything.
Right.
Well, the
not
partner,
really for you.
well, exactly, it's not about you,
right?
It's for the living, but the partner wants to honor them, and they're not doing anything, and yet they're connected to a bunch of other people. So that's a really difficult thing, because the goodbye collectively is so important. So
and that's kind of actually my situation, because my dad didn't want anything. Like, actively didn't want anything. And so that's been
like toss you out in the forest, right? That kind of an attitude.
Well, exactly. And
so
it's well intentioned,
but it's wrong.
what do you recommend for those people that say, you know, they're the ones that are kind of the person to decide or whatever, or to fulfill the wishes or whatever, and they don't have that? What do you recommend? Because ceremonies do matter. And I think sometimes we pretend like they don't, you know, it's just a piece of paper. It's just a whatever. No, they matter for our hearts, and for us to kind of embrace the new, say goodbye to the old and embrace the new, what that
The
looks
journey
like, not the
of the
person,
new.
right? The milestones matter.
Yep,
So
they do.
what do you recommend? What would you recommend for me? Because obviously I can't override.
No, but it's a bit late for you, because you're not an executor or a power of attorney or anything like that. So have the discussions with the living when you can. You need to have your talks with your parents or whoever, with your spouses. Lori and I, my wife and I, we've been talking about, wait a minute, we should probably talk about what happens if one of us has to need extra care, you know, because I hear the fights all the time. No, we want them home, and the couples get worn out trying to take care of each other. When, you know what I mean? Like, that's a whole nother world.
Exhausting. I mean,
because I work in long-term care.
Will knock you out.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's a whole different topic, but it's good. Not.
Well, it's part of the discussion, because part of it is, how do we handle in the decline before whatever, and those have agreements, right? Very real. So it's so important to be brave and have these brave, uncomfortable discussions. Resolve what you can with things, you know, with relationship issues, discuss things. It's so important, because I mean, once they're gone, they're gone.
So 2 things I would say to the individual who says, I don't want anything. Please don't fuss about me. Usually it's because they saw or were part of very long funeral services in the past. Catholic ones are an hour long, because they just do the ritual mass. Rarely will the priest ever let them give a eulogy, unless they're a really cool priest. Then maybe they'll let them in, or if they're a big donor. It's funny how that works. I'm not kidding. In evangelical churches, it's a long sermon tapped in there. It's those things that hijack the goodbye, making it religious. And that is why people say, I don't want anything. So to those that say, I don't want anything, let me encourage you, give your family members permission to at least have something small and short. Give them that decision and freedom to make that decision, because it's not about you. It is about the living trying to cope with the loss. And by you saying you want nothing, or to throw my cremate me and toss me out in the forest, or dump me in a river where I used to fish, those are nice thoughts, but it's unloving to demand your family not do anything. I just think it's very selfish and just not thought through. It really isn't.
I think it's not thought through a lot of times. And I mean, it seems to me, if that's what kind of like the wishes say, you know, just dump me in the river where I fished. Well, you can hold a little something, a little memorial something. And share
5 minutes, 10 minutes,
right? So that you have that opportunity, and then honor that. So it doesn't need
10
to be
minutes
on religious surface. Yes.
I do a lot of graveside committal services now, and they last 10-15 minutes. And basically I'll start with a poem or reading. The family gets to choose. If they want a prayer, they have to say so. Rarely do I do the Lord's Prayer. Once in a while I'll do Psalm 23, usually a newer version. And if they want anything religious, I just read a nice poem, and then I do a popcorn eulogy. So I say, okay, tell me about who they were to you. What's something you're really going to miss? And they just, you know, react like popcorn, boom, boom, boom. And that's an easy way to draw out some thoughts. And then you say, okay, together we now say goodbye, and that's it. And they watch the urn go down, they watch the casket go down. To me, that closure is critical. And some, again, this is about the lowering part. Some people say, well, I don't want to see it lowered. Well, let me encourage you to not play the emotional card. Oh, it might devastate my loved ones. Really? They need to see this. They need to wake up that life is short and that nobody gets out alive. And so watching that casket go down, it sounds cheeky and funny, but it's true. But when the casket goes down, that's the last step. You can't, if you leave with the casket left up, not lowered, if it's possible. Sometimes it's not possible.
You're still hanging, right?
Well, that's one thought. But families have told me long after, so, you know, we felt we left our loved one just alone in the open. Because if you lower, you'll never have that feeling, and it's closure. It's the last step. You can't undo that, but you can't do it later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to have that visual, throw a flower down as a send off, throw a shovel of a small, garden shovel of dirt down as a symbolic dust to dust, earth to earth. Like there are ways to make it meaningful for all the participants. It doesn't have to be long or religious. So
it's so beautiful.
I'm
Mike, that's so Jesus, isn't it?
yeah. And I'm like, for all the preachers out there, stop trying to slip in a long sermon. Stop it. This is not the time, but we're here to evangelize. No, you're not. You're not that good at it.
To have an altar call.
Well, if your church isn't growing every week, then you're not good at it. So don't try it here. Right. So like, I'm sorry.
Minister to the body. Yeah. And that's so good. What about the ones, what about the ones who are, really kind of anti-God? I mean, my dad was anti-God. Yep. So how does that work? Yeah.
Yeah, I usually tell families I offer 3 different gods, and they kind of go, "What?" I say, "Yeah, the first god is don't you dare mention him because we're pissed off with him or he doesn't exist. Right. So there's no god." Okay. Then there's the heavy god. Please preach, do an altar call, and a really long service, blah blah blah, which nobody wants if they call me. And then I say, well, or I have diet god or god light
down the street. Sorry, go ahead. God light. Okay.
God light, like Bud Light. Just the good stuff. And what's that? So, well, that's the love of God, comfort of Christ without anything long. Well, we don't want that. Okay, it's great. So they get to choose how much or how little. But if it's a totally non-religious thing, my wording matters. So when I do the committal wordings, instead of saying in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, we commit their body to the resting place. The spirit we leave with God. As mankind was created from dust to dust, we will return. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes, earth to earth. That's the traditional wording. But in the non-religious one, it's actually almost more beautiful. It's like we now commit their body to the resting place. Their spirit has been set free. May the memories you have live on, the stories you continue to share. And sometimes I'll do a blend of the two, keeping spirit set free. And people like that.
Resting place and spirit stuff. I like that one better.
Yeah. And because I trust God with the outcome.
Right. That is so Jesus. They can rest. Right? Mm-hmm. Because they're going to encounter God they don't know about yet, but they can rest. And
I have people ask me all the time, how can you do services, funeral services for people who are unbelievers? Easy. I commit their spirit to God. I kind of trust God with the outcome. Like, I have no problem with that.
Well, we're doing that anyway. Believer, unbeliever, right? I mean,
destination obsession. Trust. Yeah, destination obsession is the greatest hindrance to all these little details.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's beautiful, Mike. That is really beautiful.
I love it. I love doing funerals. I love connecting with families. I like removing the cloak of religion and offering a more free, real approach to it. And it's changed me. I can't stomach churchianity much anymore. It's hard. I'll lovingly sit through stuff. But if it's my turn to lead, we're gonna have a smile here. We're gonna as best we can. Sometimes you can't. It's so tragic. It's like, nope, you just can't. So I don't know.
How do you counsel the people that are worried about their loved ones going to eternal conscious torment? How do you help them with that?
If they're asking me at the time, I say, now is not the time to talk about it.
Gotcha.
It just is not. You're too emotionally wasted. Yes. And to have an intellectual, meaningful conversation about the destinations, let's just say Jesus said a whole lot less about the topic than the church does. So
we're obsessed as a church.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Mm-hmm. I think we're afraid that if we don't preach hell, we're going to go there.
So one of my favorite readings, let me just pop it up on my screen 1 second. One of my favorite readings at funerals, because I think it is the most profound text in all of Scripture that expresses God's relentless love towards everyone, and goes like this: Romans 8:38 and 39.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. I am convinced that nothing can ever separate us from his love. Then I look at the casket, death can't. Then I look at them, life can't. The angels can't. The demons can't. Our fears for today, our worries about tomorrow, even the powers of hell can't keep God's love away. Whether we're high above the sky or hiding in the deepest ocean, nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God. Pause. that is revealed in Christ Jesus, our Lord.
Oh my God.
And that's how I read it. Because
That
those
is
emphases are brutal. And churchy people, they
right.
know it's scripture.
Right. So they can't
Non-church
really
people are
argue.
going, wait a minute. Hell's not an issue now.
Right. Ding, 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 ding.
I
Oh,
know.
wow. That is
And I'm happy.
so beautiful. Right. I'm just telling you, because I'm like, wow. Because when you were saying, I love doing funerals, I'm like, dang. But now, since we're looking at the transcendent
Yep.
beyond, and we're celebrating with what's here, because love's here and love's there, right? Wherever you locate yourself,
So
love is there. He fills up all the space.
in light of that, some churchy folks, which drives me nuts, are the worst people that give horrible advice or phrases to others at a funeral.
Oh my God.
They try and play the
Yeah.
he's with the Lord in a better place and all this stuff that doesn't help the family right then and there. So I don't care. I want him here now, right? So the wording of what we say to people is really, really, really important.
Yeah. Help us with what not to say.
Oh, I have a list. I have like 99 things of what not to say at a funeral. Oh yeah.
Wow.
I've taught a conference on grace and grieving, I call it. And so it is a profoundly deep event. In fact, in that seminar conference, I talk about actually how to plan a service. It's an easy way that you can plan a funeral service in a meaningful way. But I talk to believers and church folks and non-church folks. Here's what not to say. They're in a better place. Oh, they're just as an angel in the sky. By the way, if people say that and like they're reading a poem, you're an angel looking down on us, don't correct them.
Right.
Like all these Jesus people who try and play happy and not take the loss seriously drive me nuts, because it's nothing like Jesus. And I'm reminded of Lazarus showing up, Jesus showing up late for a funeral. I jokingly say, guys, did you know Jesus was late for a funeral? Not 10 minutes like some of you, but just kidding. Yeah. He's like 4 days late. I think he's 4 days late. Late and not only that, his best friend. Are you kidding? Right. So then I talk about what Jesus does when he shows up. He doesn't have a snotty attitude of, guys, seriously, you don't trust me, do you? Right. He doesn't do that.
Right.
He identifies as a human and identifies with the pain and loss around him. And it says Jesus wept. It does not say, oh, look, I think there's a tear coming down his cheek. He wept.
Wow.
And I think that tells us that Jesus identifies with us in our humanity. That is, to me, the greatest lesson out of that text.
That is so incredible. True. I mean, really, when you think about that, him identifying with where we live, it's not saying, well, he's in a better place, so why are you grieving? Well, it's like, because he's not here, or she's not
Bingo.
Here.
Don't play the deflection. If you give advice to deflect people, because people mean well, they're trying to help the person feel better. Now's not the time to make them feel better. They just want to be heard and their grief acknowledged. So any advice I would give people, stop trying to fix the grieving. Don't tell them they're in a better place. Don't tell them God must have wanted their, he only takes the best. Well, what does that make me? like all that stuff. Like there's the dumb phrases that I have heard over and over just make no sense anymore. And usually it's from the church world.
It is. And it's usually to make ourselves feel better because we're uncomfortable with other people's grief.
Yes. That's exactly it. That sums it up perfectly.
Right.
Because we haven't learned how to feel.
Yes, exactly. Or we feel like, boy, if it's negative, we need to fix it. No, we need to experience it. We need part of being a full human being, experiencing the foibles and the grief and the negative parts of being fully human and engaging God in the process.
Here's a thought. People think that they're supposed to replace darkness with light. And so when they see that kind of pain, they try to speak light into it, trying to diminish the darkness. Mm-hmm. What if that's not true at all? What if, like Jesus, or like the Psalms, where it says light and dark are the same to you? There is no difference. Wow. So wait a minute. Our definitions are messed up.
That's profound.
Mm-hmm.
That is profound. And there's something about encountering God in our pain that we're not medicating, where he's able to bear with us in it.
Well,
right?
take a look at Peter. Peter's a
Right.
great example.
Yeah.
Jesus did not say, "Oh, I'm going to spare you from your pain." He says, "I'm going to pray for you, Peter, so that once you are through this, you'll be able to encourage others." Jesus did not promise the removal of pain and suffering. He promised he'll be with us in it. He'll never leave us nor forsake us. And that might mean him just hugging us. And that's it. No
Absolutely.
whispers of wisdom or truth or theology. It's just hugging and crying.
Right. Oh, that's so good. A presence matters.
Yeah.
Presence
Shut up.
matters, but
Everybody
not
else,
just
just
with him,
shut
but
up.
with one another, which is
Yeah.
why I think COVID has been so hard, right?
Mhm.
Because we haven't been allowed that. But there are ways to get around that, right? There are ways to get ministry
There are
and
wise ways.
that,
Yep.
right?
Wise ways to do that.
But in the place of our loss, where we encounter God, we know him in a way there's no other way to know him.
Yep.
And that's why he's with us in the journey through the valley of the shadow of death. He's with us, right?
Last,
He's not like
last
shortcutting
November.
it.
That's true.
Mhm.
Last November, I started working in a long-term care home. Actually, it was October, but it was in November 14th. I was called to the home, and a woman, husband and wife, were in a room, and the husband passed away in the room with her in the room. She couldn't get out of bed to help him. It was just a very, very sad circumstance. And because I've been doing funerals, they said we can't do anything because it's right in the heart of COVID. It was
Right,
bad.
right.
And so this is the very first time I did a Zoom funeral.
Wow.
I planned everything exactly the same. I created a slideshow. We
Wow.
invited all of our friends into the Zoom call.
Wow.
And we had a really good service. We had a 45-minute service, and then it was an hour and 15-minute conversation, meet and greet afterwards.
Wow.
And it worked. I thought, yeah, folks, there is a way to do this,
That's
so
amazing. That's beautiful.
it's really cool.
That's beautiful, Mike. Wow.
So there is a way to still honor your loved one. It doesn't have to be in person. It can be via Zoom for now. And then when you meet in person someday, then you just take a moment, light a candle, and have a conversation. Have a something that represents who they are and their memory visible. Okay.
Wow.
It makes a difference.
That's just amazing. Wow.
Anyway, that's what I've learned lately, and COVID has, knocked the socks off a lot of people, drained people, changed the rules, but grief is real. And you're right. We've been forced to be still and not talk as much. All the introverts are loving this quiet isolation.
Right.
But they do want to get out too.
Dying.
Well, but now we're entering a new phase of gently reopening, and all the social tensions of opinions of COVID and vaccines and all that stuff. It's awful, which makes us realize it's back to just Jesus. It's not about being right. And I think more people need to be quiet about their opinions. They say, well, I'm just sharing on my own page. Well, you're still bringing it up. If you are not the medical professional, be quiet. You're not qualified. Like, we already know your opinion over and over and over again. Stop it. Because you're not helping people grieving. You're creating more tension and making it more and more difficult. So, and even for those that are on the other side of the issue, be quiet. They know what you think. Everybody just chill.
Boy, this is true, and I kind of early on because there's so many different camps you can fall into, pro-con, whatever. And I was talking to the Lord, I said, I mean, I have opinions about it, just like everyone else, everybody has an opinion. They're like noses. They're usually full of holes, right? Everyone's got one, right? And I was like, Lord, do I need to come out with this? Like, am I being wimpy or whatever? And he was like, honey, I gave you a mandate. That's not changed. And so it's really for me. So my greatest contribution has not changed.
Yep.
Right. As a matter of fact, it's ramped up because this revelation of our oneness with a person who is love, who's wild about you, who never leaves, never forsakes you, all the different stuff. Right. It's needed more than ever.
Yes.
Right? And it brings clarity. You and I, last time we connected, I believe we were talking about hope. Well, hope is not changed. As a matter of fact, hope blazes greater in the place where there's people have realized that what they put their hope in is falling through. Right. And so what is the eternal that we can put our hope with? That actually really stands. This is not religious gobbledygook. It's like, no, this will uphold you. for eternity, faith, hope, and love remain. The greatest of these is love.
Yep.
So, it will outlast.
I've had the
COVID
Holy
and everything else.
I've had the Holy Spirit run up the stairs and tell me remove that post. That's my wife. Because I know, because I've had opinions or reacted to somebody. I got caught into the reaction with an opinion and realized, no, what's my message? Hope, grace, love, Jesus. If I start to bring in politics, now I'm now I'm going to split. Or if I bring in COVID opinions, like strong ones, I don't mind talking about loosely and carefully and safely. That's fine. But when you get into the opinions of it, you just divided even more people. Jesus is not into that. And so there's enough in the news about it. We don't need to be another information giver. Usually it's skewed information anyway. I don't care what side you're on.
Oh boy, this is so true. And it doesn't bring life to people.
No. So I see pastors and teachers say, well, I'm standing up for truth. Well, really, are you? I think you're standing up for your opinion. Go back to your grace stuff, because that's good. This is not.
Right.
Go to the hope.
And truth is a person. And I believe you just, it's kind of our constantly trying to put Jesus on our altar in our camp, right? We're trying to make him Caesar in our particular political party or our particular vaccine party or our particular whatever. And it's like, he just refuses. He's just like, nope, that's not me. Look unto me. I'm love. I'm truth. I'm light. I'm life. I'm all of these things, and I am eternal. At some point, COVID's not going to be the big thing. At some point, that will happen, right? But it'll be something else. Yep. Right. And so we rallying around the eternal that actually brings life and actually bears fruit in and of himself. As we're remaining in him and all that kind of thing, in our mindset. It's not like we go in and out of Christ. It's just we get in and out of our awareness of him.
I think if we recognize Christ in us as us, the oneness of us, with Christ, I'm not Christ, but Christ is in me. I'm one with Christ. When I realize that, whatever journey I'm going into, whatever celebration or grief I face, it's still the same Christ. So when we think it's only about being happy, happy is about happiness or happenings, but joy is about contentment and the person of Christ. So facing grief, don't try to sidestep the journey. Go through it. It says, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. He's not talking about the dead end. It's a valley. It's you go through it. I always saw it as a dead end, but it's not.
No, it's true. And on the other side, it says we go from strength to strength. So there's an upgrade in the place of having gone through that valley. If it's a death, if it's another type of death, right? When we go through a valley, God brings us out on the other side. And it says we go from strength to strength. So there's an upgrade on the other side. There's an upgrade in knowing who God is, because he's been something for you that he wasn't before. And he's able to bring the eternal, and then he's able to bring you out on the other side. At very least, you're going to come out more compassionate, maybe more humble, maybe able to bear. Right? Maybe able to bear with other people, maybe being able to look at what really matters. Maybe he's bringing you through, Catherine, to rest more, right? To operate from that place of rest, to be content with what you have while he's bringing you through. There's what do we learn? Every time we learn, we grow. And every time we grow, we're manifesting as the sons of God at another level, from glory to glory. We're being unveiled, and that has value. It releases creation from its groaning to some extent. And that's what we can gain in the midst of all these losses. But you can't shortcut. When I look past, the reason I know in my knower, the reason I have such an intimacy with the Lord is that we've been some ugly places together. He's seen my ugly, he's seen the ugly things that have happened. And man, he's brought me through and redeemed something beautiful on the other side. Man, your God like that, him, right? And it's not this religious gobbledygook. It's not but it's something that actually builds you up. And it's something that circumstances, death can't take away.
Yep.
And it's really amazing. And I know you've had your own amazing journey with that.
Not done.
Right. We're on it. We're on it. Absolutely.
And I think we're going to encounter people on the way that we never saw coming, that you haven't met them yet. I haven't met them yet. And one thing I am learning during a crisis that happened a couple of years ago, quit focusing on trying to become. I think in the Christian world, we're trying to become more mature, trying to earn a title, earn status, reputation, because we're trying to grow a ministry. Oh my goodness. How about just love the person right in front of you at that given moment? That's it.
There's nothing greater. It's all about people. It's all about loving one another. He's drawing us together in oneness, which means we love as he loves. And we're growing in that capacity. That's it. That's the eternal thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what death teaches us, that people matter, love's eternal. And that's
when I see pictures in a slideshow, I don't see coin collections, well, I might see a cool car, but you don't see money collections, teacup collections, spoon collections. Right. You see family pictures. You see time at the dock, kids playing in a pool. You see people. And that's something we got to remember. And some of our conversations are destroying our relationships. And we need to stop and realize, hang on, is what my issue is going to matter in 10 years? If not, then repent, change your mind.
So good. That's so good. Yeah, we need to be aware to the most important thing is the one in front of you. So that means we guard each other's hearts. Not like, so if what I'm going to say is going to tear that person down, I need to guard their heart with what I'm saying. Maybe I just need to not like put my 2 cents in there. It's probably 0.01 cent in there, because it's not gonna minister to their hearts. And then what happens is we sacrifice relationship.
Bingo. One of the biggest things I see in all the funerals I do is that while we live, we are constantly sending messages, life messages, to each person around us. Every single person's doing it. You're doing it. I'm doing it. So my question is, what are those messages that we receive, or have for the loved one? What messages did all the living receive from the one that's passed away? Now wake up and realize you're sending messages to those around you. Are you speaking light or darkness to one another? Really think about it. Say, I'm sorry more often. Forgive each other faster. Oh, shoot, that requires humility. Say, I love you more often. Like this to me is the core of it. And I get the joy and privilege of sitting through these and being reminded starkly how quick things can change. And yeah, it's a wake-up call.
Is that truth? I know my sister and I kind of have this debate going. She's all into truth, kind of injustice, and I'm all into love. And we're like, which one is greater? We're like, they're all one person. But I just know if I'm speaking truth, and it's whatever that and it may be true, but it's not ministering love. It's actually being used in a destructive way. And so, and then who am I to know, right? We have to be humble. So, really engaging the Lord with what does loving the one in front of you look like? And I think a lot of times it just means keeping your mouth shut a lot. You don't need to you don't need to blab on all the time. And certainly as ministers, we don't need to have all the stinking answers, right?
I just saw a meme from Danny Prada from Florida. He says, you can never go wrong letting another person be right. They get to be correct and you get to be free.
Ooh, I love that. You get to be free. Not having to be right is freedom. Absolutely. And it's interesting because you see this with Jesus a lot. A lot of times he just let people be wrong. He wasn't like, I am truth, but yeah, that's okay. We'll let you be wrong. And occasionally he brings something out when it would minister to their heart. Listen, we're not really talking about the mountain we're worshiping on. We're really talking about your heart. Now let me minister to you. And that transformed her. Right.
Yep.
Love it.
Yep.
So beautiful.
Quite incredible.
Wow.
I just sent you the meme.
Oh, that's so great. I'll have to post that. That is, wow. That is so powerful. I love that. There's freedom in not being right. Hallelujah. Yeah. There is.
Well, that'll change all religious conversations too.
Won't it?
I'm serious. That's where I first learned it. It's not about being right, and even worse, being more right than the other person. That's churchianity.
Oh my goodness. And it just brings death. And the fruit of it is, okay, now we've just kind of destroyed relationship, Yeah. Wow. Well, I can't believe we're kind of nearing the
Oh my goodness. Time's up.
Wow.
That went fast.
I know, right? Any final words of wisdom? I mean, this is kind of your wheelhouse. So I'm like, yes, let me just receive of your wisdom, your experience, people that are grieving, helps for them, whatever you think.
Ooh, those that are grieving, if you are the one grieving, grieve. Don't suppress, don't stop it. See a counselor.
Mhm.
Really important if you're having a hard time. It doesn't have to be 100 visits, just a couple of visits. You get some tools. Psychology is a science. It's not voodoo. So there are facts and proven ways to help individuals. The church has hijacked that and Christianized it, with churchy language. So I'd rather go to a psychologist than a pastor who has no counseling training.
Oh,
you know?
absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, we need to be humble enough to let people who are anointed, even if they're not anointed in the name of Jesus, but this is their wheelhouse, let them minister, even though it may not be ministry, but let them give of what their expertise. And that's beautiful.
And for those, like for you have loved ones that you're having discussions with, and they're maybe not grieving, doing the steps the way they probably should be that you see. To all of you folks, don't do anything. Let it be. You're not in charge of it. Because your loved ones already passed away, don't destroy relationships for trying to be right, or better with advice. Just let it happen. And when conversations become real, then you can have the real life heart-to-heart conversation about what can work. But then you're not telling them what to do. You're having a conversation, which is very different. So I guess stop pushing, and just be present for when you can. Send a gift card to a family that's grieving. Let them choose the food they want, because nowadays with all the gluten stuff and vegetarian things, just send them a gift card to a really good place. That's a super loving thing to do, and let them have the freedom to go and choose when they want to eat.
Right. And they don't have to finish it up in 5 months.
No, well,
the food in the freezer for the next
year. We did that all the time. And the family that's grieving has to be there at the time you say. It's loving, but it's a pain in the butt. Right, so
exactly. Yeah. That's great advice. Wow, that's so great. Well, Mike, I so appreciate you. I'm excited with all these things that you're learning, and I love the fact that you're like, I love it when you jump and say, Catherine, now rethink that, because I love it. Like, yes, let me rethink that. That just we're so better together, aren't we? As a body,
because it works two ways. You pointed out stuff to me. It's like, oh yeah, that's a tweak.
That's so good.
But you do that. We can do that because trust is there. And no judgment.
Oh my goodness. It's so good. I love it.
It's rare. Okay.
Yeah.
Can't always do that with everybody.
Well, I love it. I love it that we can. And and hopefully that we're creating a space where others can as well, right? Where it's okay to be free in it and to grow and to, oh my God, maybe get it wrong, or maybe needed to step up, or
people can reach out to me if they want to on Facebook or on my webpage, whatever it is. If they have questions about especially grieving and funerals and all that stuff and protocols, whatever, I'll give you my thoughts. It's just my thoughts of what I've seen work and what doesn't work. That's all. Happy to help if I can.
That is so great. Well, I have got all your links and unless they've changed from the last time, they'll be in the notes, and people definitely reach out to Mike, because he's got great stuff anyway, even if it's not on grieving. So
it works two ways.
Yes. So anyway, it's all good. So thank you so much. It's always a joy, Mike. Yeah. And I hope we can have another conversation. Yeah.
I would love that. Yep.
Love it. Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, make sure you check out Mike and his stuff. He's amazing, and have an amazing day.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation. That was good. I forgot some of the stuff we talked about, and it kind of ignited some memories and made me realize there's a lot more grief going on, a lot more struggle going on than I realize, and there's so many layers of it. So be encouraged today. I hope that conversation was helpful. Thank you for the comments, Joy and Guelph. Yeah, you're right. It's such a good conversation, and to pause to talk about all this. Yeah, this is a topic that's you really probably don't want to talk about, but I think when we call it out, it helps us process it. And I think grieving comes in many forms. It's not just grieving the loss of someone who's passed away. We grieve the loss of a lifestyle. We grieve the loss of a dream or an expectation that has passed away. It's like that expectation will never happen. We grieve hopes that we had for the future because stuff changed. We grieve career changes. We grieve the loss of relationships with our partners that through divorce or whatever happens. We grieve the loss of relationship with our kids when things go bad. You name it, with friends, with honestly, grief is a real thing that is happening, and something to remember. If you're facing something like that, please reconsider visiting or just Google the stages of grief. It's not just 5. There's the 7 stages of grief that I think is even more helpful. And to know and identify, hey, I've got these emotions that are clashing and are going up and down all over the place. At least when you see those stages, you go, oh, I'm actually normal. Oh, that's what's going on. Oh, okay. I'm not going crazy. No, you're grieving. And you'll be angry one moment and you'll be really edgy the next, and you're wondering what's going on. But honestly, sometimes it really is the journey of grief. Deep sadness, deep anger, bargaining. If I only could have done this, or shoulda, woulda, coulda, you name it. All those things come to the forefront when we're facing life changes, all those things. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today. I hope that was encouraging to you. Share if you liked it. Stay tuned for a January event. You'll hear more soon. I'm just putting the poster together or whatever on a conference on forgiveness, healing life's hurts through understanding forgiveness. I've got 8 to 10 guest speakers that will be sharing, and I think you're going to be blessed. I think you're going to love the content, and it's going to come from all kinds of lenses. So brace yourself. It's going to be good. But that's it for today. I hope you have a really great week, and we'll catch you next time. See ya. Join me next time on Still Growing in Grace for more good news. Enjoy previous episodes by downloading our podcast at growingingrace.ca. You can also visit hopefellowshipycc.com to find our service times and location. If this show has been an encouragement to you, please consider making a donation today at growingingrace.ca and help us keep spreading this good news. Thank you again for tuning in to Still Growing in Grace.